Hello, everyone. Taking Grammar and Context 2, Prope B. Today's May 11th, 2020. I think we'll go ahead and get started as folks are coming in. Please let me know if you can hear me okay, if you want to leave a message in the chat, or of course, interrupt me at any time to ask questions, to clarify anything that we're talking about today in class. I want to go ahead and get started because I want to try to get through some examples today of reported speech. So I would like for you guys to take a look as we talk today about reported speech. Take a look at some of your direct questions that you included in your wiki from last week, and also compare those direct questions from your wiki with those indirect questions that you posted or that you included in your assignment, in your paragraph assignment that we completed last week. So we started an interview where you were to interview one of your family members, and we included some examples of some questions and some responses in your wiki. And we're going to refer to those as direct speech. Those would be some examples last week of direct speech where you wrote out the questions that you asked and the responses from your interviewee. When you drafted your paragraph, you converted that direct speech into indirect speech or reported speech. That's the same. Those two are synonymous. And today what I'd like to do is to provide another overview of reported speech and also give you some examples to work through. I hope actually those who took Prope A in the morning can also either watch this recording or maybe they're watching the broadcast to also take a look at some of the examples since we had some technical issues in the morning and we're not able to get through a lot of examples. But today I want to get right into it so that we can watch the video first to provide some discussion, to review what is reported speech, and then give us more time to work out some examples. All right, so I want to go ahead and get into it here. I'm going to share my screen. All right, hopefully now you can see my screen and hopefully you can see the YouTube video that we're going to watch. I'm going to play just a few seconds of the video and I would like to know if you can hear the audio as it's coming through the computer.
When we report someone's words, we can do it in two ways: direct speech and reported or indirect speech.
Okay, can you guys just give me a quick, either someone can mention something using your microphone or in the chat. Can you hear the video?
Hey Ben, it is working.
Okay, great. All right, so this video is rather short, but I'm going to stop it a few times and make some additional comments. And so let's take a look now comparing direct speech with indirect speech or reported speech.
An example of direct speech is, Diane said, "I am happy today." To write the same sentence in reported speech, we would say, Diane said that she was happy that day.
All right, so this first example, take notice here of the verb tenses, because a lot of today's discussion when we compare direct speech with indirect speech is going to be comparing and being very careful with the verb tense that we use. So notice in the direct speech example, Diane said, notice that said is in the past tense, although her comment, what she said, was in the present tense. So here in this case, in reported speech, Diane said that she was happy, was is in the past tense because when she said it occurred in the past. Here they're going to explain also, we need to be careful with the pronouns since I is going to be the first person pronoun since she's talking about herself. In reported speech, it'll be in the third person talking about one person talking about someone else.
Notice that there's a difference in direct and reported speech. When we change direct speech to reported speech, we must often change the tense. For example, she said, I am tired. This is direct speech. She said that she was tired. This is reported speech. If we use the present tense in direct speech, we use the past tense in reported speech. Another example, he said, I have seen snow. This is direct speech.
Okay, so what is the verb tense, I have seen snow? What verb tense is being used in this example of direct speech?
Present perfect.
All right, how do you think we're going to change this to the reported speech? Any ideas? And I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat. If you guys want to speak, of course, I encourage you to unmute your mic and just free to post in the chat. What do you guys think? How would you convert this direct speech? He said, I have seen snow. How would you change that to the reported speech or the indirect speech? Feel free to upload your response to the chat.
I would say past perfect.
All right. And so how would it be, Oscar? How would you say it how would you state the reported speech? Okay, so we have a response here. He said that he had seen snow. All right, so notice two things are going on here in this example. We changed the pronoun from I to he because now we're talking about third person. One person is speaking about someone else. And we changed the present perfect tense to the past perfect tense.
In reported speech, we say, he said that he had seen snow.
Now remember the past perfect tense. When do we use the past perfect tense? When is it appropriate to use this verb tense, the past perfect? Do you remember? Again, feel free to either post your response in the chat or unmute your microphone. When do you use the past perfect tense? So think about the past perfect tense as talking about two events that happened in the past. Remember the past perfect tense, we need to think about two things that happened in the past. In this case, what were those two things? Well, the first thing is the moment that this person saw snow, and it was in the past, right? When he says, I have seen snow, at some point in the past, this person saw snow. We don't know exactly when, and it's not necessarily important when it happened, but we know that it happened at some point in the past. Now, in the second example, reported speech example, we're using the past perfect tense because we have to indicate and distinguish between two things that happened in the past. The first thing that happened in the past was that he saw snow, right? The second thing that happened was he said it. So two things happened in the past. He had seen snow happen before the moment that he said it. Both two events that happened in the past. Remember, the past perfect is a verb tense that we use to indicate something that happens before something else in the past.
Notice the present perfect changes to the past perfect. The children said, "We are listening." This is direct speech.
All right, what do you think? How do we change this to reported speech or indirect speech? What do you think?
We have to change it to past.
All right, and can you provide an example? How would it read?
The children said that they were listening.
That's right. Very good. So that's it. We just have to be really careful with the verb tense. And sometimes we have to also be careful with the pronouns.
The children said that they were listening. This is reported speech. Notice the present continuous changes to the past continuous.
Again, remember, as we're talking about this and we're working through some of the examples in today's class, make sure that you're comparing the direct questions that you included in your wiki with the indirect questions that you ended up writing in the paragraph.
Let's look at a real example. The son says to his father, "I fell down the stairs."
Okay, so the son says to his father, "I fell down the stairs." Okay, let me see if I can move this so you can see. Move the chat here in the middle. All right, so this happened Saturday night. And he says to his father, "I fell down the stairs." Now on Sunday, the father says something to presumably either his wife or a friend, someone. All right, he's reporting what his son told him. So what do you think? How would you include the reported speech for this example? I fell down the stairs. Feel free to upload a response in the chat, or of course you can unmute your microphone and state how you would report the speech, or how this person in this example would report this speech. Feel free to upload in the chat. This is not being part of the recording. So, I mean, it doesn't matter if you make a mistake. This is just for practice, right? And it doesn't matter if you put the same response as someone else. He said that he had fell down the stairs. Okay, that's certainly a possibility. Are there other options, other possibilities? Because a lot of these examples that we're going to look at today, we're going to actually see that there are many different ways that we can use reported speech. There are different options. There are different verbs, even different pronouns and nouns that we can use to essentially say the same thing. Take a look at this example here. Notice that when did he say this? When did he say, "I fell down the stairs"? He said it Saturday night. Now on Sunday is when the next day, presumably, is when they are reporting this this speech. So what are some alternatives, some other possibilities?
I would keep it the same way. He said that he fell down the stairs.
You would keep it in the same way. In what sense, Oscar?
I wouldn't change the verb.
Okay, so how would it be? Can you repeat it again? How would you state it as reported speech?
Uh, he said that he fell down the stairs.
Okay, he said that he fell down the stairs. Okay. All right. Looking at the example of he said that he fell down the stairs, what verb tense is that example? If we go back to this example, he said that he had fell. What verb tense are we using in that example? Oscar's example is also possible. He's saying that just to keep it in the same tense. But let's look at this example of he said that he had fell. What verb tense do we need, and how do we structure or form that verb tense? Any ideas? He told his father that he had fallen down the stairs. So look, let's compare this. He had fallen. What verb tenses had fallen?
Past
Okay.
perfect.
Past perfect. So remember when we form the past perfect, the verb, the auxiliary had plus the verb in the past participle. So be really careful with the verb in the past participle. Now, who's doing the reporting? Who's doing the reporting in this case? Of these three family members, I guess they're family members, who is doing the reporting? What do you think? Who's doing the reporting in this example? We've got, I guess this is the son, this is the father, and this is the father, and this is the, I guess, the mother.
The father.
All right. So if the father's doing the reporting, what's a variation on this one? He told his father, right, that he had fallen down the stairs, right? If you say it like this, he told his father, who's doing the reporting? Well, you are, right? How would you change this slightly so that the person, in this case, the father, is doing the reporting? Any ideas? Any ideas? Okay, my son told me that he had fallen down the stairs. Okay, all right, good. Now, one other thing, what else could we add to indicate time? Because again, here towards the bottom, all right, we're going to assume that the son mentioned this to his father. I fell down the stairs and on a Saturday night. So the time that the father now is reporting about this or telling his wife about what happened or what the son told him, it was Sunday. So what other piece, what other bit of information can we add to this example to indicate time? Okay, you could say yesterday. My son told me that he had fallen down the stairs yesterday, right? Any other options? And the key word here is night. Saturday night. Last night, right. My son told me they had fallen down the stairs last night. Okay, so notice that there are many different ways depending on how specific and who's doing the speaking, who's doing the reporting, right? But there are different options that are available.
The father reports to his wife. He said that he had fallen down the stairs. The past tense in direct speech changes to the past perfect or stays in the simple past in reported speech. Also notice how the pronoun changes. Another example, Katie tells her friend, I have a secret. I really like Thomas.
All right, so Katie's got a secret. I really like Thomas is what she says. All right, now, me. How is it? How is somebody going to report on what Katie says? We got to spread the gossip. We got to tell our friends. It's big news. And I'm not even sure, maybe this is even Thomas, right? Let's pretend that this is Thomas over here on the right. I don't know if you can see my cursor, probably not. But the guy, I guess the person all the way to the right, let's assume that's Thomas. And this girl here in the middle is Katie's friend. And this girl in the middle likes to gossip, so she's going to tell Thomas. So what do you think? How is she going to tell Thomas? Okay, so here we go. We have some examples. Katie told me that she likes you. Great. It's a good example. Katie has a secret. She really likes you, right? So I probably, that's fine. You can say she has a secret and maybe, and she really likes you. But when we do reported speech, we have to, there's basically two verbs that we have to be careful with. Remember that there are two verbs, and it usually will start something like, if we look at the prior examples that we've seen so far today, and I'm just scrolling up in the chat. You guys can do the same. We had some examples like, he said that. He said that he had seen snow. He said that he had fallen down the stairs. He told his father. So now we have a different verb. Instead of said, we have told. He told his father, right, that he had fallen down the stairs. That's fine. My son told me that he had fallen down the stairs yesterday or last night. Katie told me that she likes you. Notice that there are two verbs going on. This is something that is a part of forming a reported speech, is having those two verbs. Now, we can say something like, yes, Katie told me. What other verbs can we use instead of say and tell, which have been primarily the two verbs that we've used? Mention, that's a good one. We can say Katie mentioned that, right? Maybe it was just kind of a off the cuff, a light comment. It wasn't like really something meaningful. She just kind of mentioned it out of nowhere, right? So Katie mentioned that she really likes you. She stated, you could say that, she stated con dos T's, right? So she stated that, that's kind of formal. She stated that she likes you. Probably not the most appropriate verb for this case, this particular situation, but you might say something like the teacher stated, if it was like a lecture or something formal, or maybe it was, something that your mother or father mentioned to you under a certain formal situation. So recognize that there are different verbs, and be careful when you're doing reported speech that you include both of those verbs. So somebody either said something, mentioned something, claimed something, Revealed. Revealed is another verb that you could use.
Her friend then tells Thomas, "Hi, Thomas. Katie told me that she liked you." Here, the present tense verb like changes to the past tense, liked.
Now, this is interesting because especially in this particular example, and we're going to see in a few minutes in the same video, an alternative to changing verbs. Okay, so you might ask yourself, well, this might even sound weird to you, this example. When Katie told me that she liked you, right? Certainly that's acceptable. But you also might have heard that the examples which some of you mentioned, Katie told me that she likes you in the present tense. So we're going to find later here in a few minutes that you can also use the same verb if what you're saying, if what the person is saying, it applies to the present tense, that it's still true. It's something that still is a fact. And in this case, this doesn't necessarily mean that she liked you, but she doesn't like that, she doesn't like you anymore, right? You could say this and still imply that she still likes Thomas, right? But there are other examples where we do have to pay closer attention to the present and past tense so that we're communicating if what the person is saying, whether it applies to something that is present and that is still true at the moment that they're saying, or that the moment of them repeating or reporting what they're saying, or if it's something that happened in the past that is done and it doesn't apply anymore to the present tense. We'll see some examples here in a few minutes.
Here's another. The teacher says, "Don't chew gum in school."
Okay, so we got a mean teacher and she's saying to the student, "Don't chew gum in school." So what does the student do? He's a little upset, but he's going to be telling one of his buddies the bad news. So how is he going to report what the teacher told him? What do you think? Notice in this example, there's a little bit, it's a little bit different in that it's a negative sentence. We have the adverb not, right, to reflect a negative idea. So think about that when you're thinking about how you would report this speech, this example. Okay, my teacher told me not to chew gum in school. All right. Notice the position, notice the order of the word not coming before the infinitive to chew gum. Okay, if you're looking at the chat, take a look at that example. My teacher told me not to chew gum in school. Is there another alternative? That the boy with the the cap is telling his buddy. What else could he say? Certainly he could say that. My teacher told me not to chew gum. What's another possibility? What do you think? Any other option besides the one given here? This is perfectly acceptable. Are there any other options that you could, another way that you could say it? You might even think about if this boy was, let's say he was a little embarrassed about being singled out by the teacher, or maybe he felt bad about being singled out and he didn't want to make it sound so personal. He might say, my teacher told us not to chew gum in school, right? So he could say, well, even though she singled him out, he's telling his buddy to tell everybody else, hey, word is that we can't chew gum in school. Okay, so that's also another possibility. It depends on the meaning, the context, but other pronouns, right, are certainly acceptable depending on the situation.
The boy tells his dad, my teacher told me not to chew gum in school.
Right, and here's another example. One of you uploaded, my teacher told me that I cannot chew gum in school. That's also a possibility.
Here, the word don't changes to not to. When changing direct speech to reported speech, we often need to change the time. For example, tomorrow becomes the next day. Next week becomes the following week. Yesterday becomes the day before or the previous day. Last week becomes the week before or the previous week.
Okay, so here, this is where we have to be careful using adverbs of frequency to indicate when things are happening or when someone says something. And this is going to very much depend on when you're reporting, when the person is reporting what the person said, and also obviously when the person said it and when the person is indicating a time, a specific time when something happened.
For example, the boy says to the girl, I will call you tomorrow.
All right. So what do you think? So here we have last Friday night. The boy tells the girl, I will call you tomorrow. So the girl drops her ice cream and she's calling her best bud. Well, how is she going to report this hot news? What do you think? How's she going to report the big news? And you can start, he said, but there might be some other options. You can even give this guy a name if you want. Maybe even try a different verb. All right, so he said he would call me the next day. All right, now if we take that example, which day is the next day? Now remember, the girl is calling her friend. She's saying, he said that he would call me the next day. Has she mentioned when he called? So how could you indicate specifically when he would call? And I would also try to avoid writing gonna, since that's that's not really a word. So I would say I would write that out just so that you get in the habit of writing that out as a real word. So he said that he was going to call me on Saturday. Okay, you could say that. He said that he was going to call me on Saturday. On Friday, he told me that he would call me the following day. All right, you could say that. You could say that. He said Friday night, he told me that he would call me the following day. You could even, okay, any other options without, those are all possibilities. Any other options? He could also, or she could say, he told me that he would call me on Saturday. Could also say that, not even indicate the Friday when he called that, but the main thing was that he was going to call on Saturday and he didn't. So, all right, so let's take a look here. Notice now the verbs. Here we want to look at this example. This is a different example because now we have a different verb tense that we're considering.
Tomorrow. The girl tells her friend, he said that he would call me the next day, but he didn't call. Notice will changes to would, and tomorrow changes to the next day.
Now, in this example, again, I bring this up about Saturday and all this. This for me would be a little strange if someone said, he said he would call me the next day, but he didn't. If the day was on Tuesday, right, the girl, her friend is probably going to say, well, the next day, well, what day was that? Because there's no indication that when they called on Friday, right? So, but certainly the point in this example is to be careful with adverbs of frequency, right? And there's nothing wrong with using the next day if within the context it's clear, what, in this case, when the conversation took place. When did the boy say, I will call you tomorrow? So that's the main point here. Now, notice that we have would. We change will to would. So this is actually a new case using the modal would. We've seen this modal before in conditionals, but notice now we have a different use. Would, the modal would, is now being used to indicate the past tense, a future, something in the future, but something in the past in this case because it's reported speech, right? So he would call me the next day, right? So here, it's not so much conditional as it is indicating reported speech using indicating the past tense.
How can we ask questions in reported speech? First, let's talk about yes or no questions.
Now here they're going to present two types of questions, yes or no questions and content questions. Again, either if you have your questions up now from last week's assignment, take a look at those, or after the class, pay close attention to the two different types of questions that we worked on last week. The direct questions that occurred in your wiki and the indirect questions that you included in your paragraph. So let's take a look at these two examples, these two types of questions.
For example, can you help me carry my groceries? To change this to reported speech, we must use the word if. He asked if I could help him. Notice the word can changes to could.
All right, so two key points for yes/no questions. The inclusion of the connector if. So we must add if for changing this to an indirect speech or indirect question. And notice we're changing the modal can to could. This is also another use for the modal could, right? We're actually using this to show reported speech from the modal can.
Okay, now let's try something that's not a yes or no question. For example, what is your name? In reported speech, we would say, she asked what my name was.
All right, so here on content questions, any question that's not a yes or no question, or any question that begins with one of the question words, what, how, why, when, where, and so on. Think about any type of question, a direct question that you form, and look at the questions that you included in your interview. How can you change that direct question into an indirect question? Well, notice that we begin similarly with a subject and a verb, usually in the past, she asked, and then we have the question word. In this case, because the question is a what question, we have she asked what. Now, my name was. Notice the position of the subject and the verb. Notice here, subject comes before the verb, whereas in the question, the verb comes before the subject. Notice that in the direct question, we use a question mark, and in the indirect question, we use a period. All right, same with the yes, no questions. We use a period, indirect, and we use a question mark for the direct question.
We don't need to switch the subject and the verb, and we don't need the word if. And one last piece of information. It isn't always necessary to change the tense if something is still true now. For example, direct speech. Diane said, I am a teacher. Diane said that she is a teacher. We don't need to change the tense because this is still true now.
Okay, so again, that was going back to our example earlier. I don't know if I can find it here really quickly, where she's talking about the girl and Thomas, the girl who liked Thomas, right? That it's a little bit different when if someone said it's pretty close to the same, but if you say something like so-and-so likes you, it's a little bit stronger than saying someone that she liked you, right? She said that she likes you. For me, has a slightly more of an emphasis on the fact that she likes you. Okay. All right. And again, in terms of, English or whatever, this is for someone likes you more for more than a friend, basically, right? Okay. So any questions now before we get into some additional examples? We've looked at different verb tenses. We've looked at tenses from the direct speech equivalent, moving it to an indirect speech. Any questions about any of the examples or any additional examples that relate to reported speech? All right, if there are no more examples, we've got a few more minutes. I want to run just a few examples today, and we can run through a few more tomorrow. But let's take a look at an example. So I'm going to post a direct question. These are all direct speech, okay? Some of them are declarative sentences. Some of them are questions. All right, so I'm going to upload the first example, and I am going to make a statement, and I want you to report on what I said. Now, you can use either, my name, Benjamin or Ben, or whatever. You can use a pronoun if you wish. That doesn't really matter, but I would try to now move and convert this example. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste it into the chat. And I would ask that you complete the reported speech, and then I'll indicate when I want you to send it so that we can all send it to the chat at the same time. All right, so here's the example. All right, I have time today to eat cake. Okay, so I'm saying it. This is me speaking. So I would like for you to report on what I said. Type it into the chat, but don't hit enter. Okay, I'll give you guys a minute or so to type it out. I have time today to eat cake. Type it out in the chat, but please do not hit enter. All right, I'm going to count down. Don't send it. 3, 2, 1. Please go ahead and send it. Send your response. All right, so we have Ben told me that he has time. Okay, take a look at the responses. I'm looking at some of them here. Ben said that he has time to eat cake. Ben told me that he has time to eat cake. To eat his cake. All right. And let's assume that you're reporting this in the same day. So I said it in a couple of hours. You're repeating what I said. Okay. You could say Ben said that he had time to eat cake today. All right. If you were reporting this next week, then you could indicate instead of today what that day would have been, right? So he said that he had time to eat his cake. I think I would use the past tense though. Okay, so notice the change in verb tense. So Benjamin said that I think I would say he had time today to eat cake, right? Ben said that he had time to eat cake today, right? So you could put today at the end of the sentence, or you could also say Ben said that he had time today to eat cake. Both are fine. You could actually put the adverb of frequency at the end of the sentence, or after, let's see, he had time today after time. Okay, let's look at another example. All right, again, this is me talking, and you're going to report what I say here. Okay, so I'm saying, Benny is 3 years older than Oliver. Benny is 3 years older than Oliver. Now you report like you were telling someone else what I told you. Benny is 3 years older than Oliver. Go ahead and type it out, but please don't hit enter until I ask you to do so. And try to compare this statement to the statement that I said earlier. I have time to eat cake today. And this example, Benny is 3 years older than Oliver. Okay, I'll count down. 3, 2, 1. Enter your response. Benjamin told me that Benny is 3 years older. Ben said that he is 3 years older than Benny. Said that Ben said that Benny was 3 years. Benny said, okay. Be careful with the example. Benny said that he is 3 years older than Oliver. Be careful in this example, and I know maybe this is hard to conceptualize, but you're reporting what I, Benjamin Stewart, your instructor, said, right? So I'm talking about my boys, and I say Benny is 3 years older than Oliver, speaking about my two boys, then you have to report what I say. And so Benjamin, you would want to start either with Benjamin said, or Ben said, or the teacher Ben said, or you'd have to mention either me or a pronoun. He said that, right? That's all. Those are all acceptable. That Benny is 3 years older than Oliver. Now notice the verb tense here. Probably the present tense is better than changing it to the past tense. In the first example, I was suggesting that you use the past tense. Benjamin said that he had time to eat cake, right? Because he was saying something in the past, even though it was the same day, it was in the past, and that he's just saying that he had time today to eat cake. That's perfectly fine. But in this case, since Benny is 3 years older than Oliver, and this is just a fact that's always going to be true, even up to the point when you're reporting this statement, then the most appropriate verb tense is going to be the present tense. All right. So see the difference between the first example as really applying more to the past, whereas the second example really is a truth that is going to be true whenever you say it. If you report this to someone else next week, well, Benny's still going to be 3 years older than Oliver. If you talk about this next year, it's still Benny's going to be 3 years older than Oliver. So that's the difference. And to use the present tense versus the past tense to distinguish between something that happens that's still true in the moment versus something that happened in the past that's really more relevant to the past. All right, guys, I hope this helps. I want to spend more time tomorrow. I know we only got in a few examples. I want to try to get in as many examples as possible. And I would like for you also in the meantime to begin looking at your direct questions that you included from last week's assignment and compare. I want you to compare word for word the version that you have in your wiki, the direct speech or the direct question, versus word for word the question that you reported on in your paragraph, how you converted that direct question to an indirect question, but checking all, because I want us to be really clear on how to convert and be comfortable with the two versions of the questions that you included in your interview. So, are there any final questions regarding reported speech or any of the examples that we looked at today? All right, if there are no more questions, I think we'll stop there for today. This session has been recorded, and I'm also going to invite those in Prope A to take a look at this video since, again, we had some technical issues in the morning. I hope today we get more of a full recording of the entire class to benefit both groups, hopefully. And again, tomorrow we'll spend some more time just getting practice looking at the two different kinds of speech, direct speech and indirect speech. We're going to have more opportunities this week in a real context to practice the direct speech and indirect speech. So keep looking at your examples that you've provided. If you need to, of course, check out YouTube. If you need to look for additional explanations, of course, send me chats, messages if you have specific questions that either you want me to address outside of class, or if there's something that you want me to review again in class, we can certainly do that. But yeah, let me know. Finally, if you guys are having issues accessing the virtual classroom, please make sure that we're in close communication, that you're reaching out to me and letting challenges that you're having, whether it's a problem with our servers at the university or it's with your, if you have significant issues, right, that you're having that's really causing you to get behind or causing you to get access to the course content, please make sure somehow that you're reaching out, that I can work with you to work out these challenges. All right, guys, I think we'll stop there for today. Of your day, and we'll see you guys tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We'll continue with the reported speech. Thanks, guys. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.